Well folks, we're just under a week away from our annual tractor show here in town, and I figured being a Sunday, take a day off from work, and it'd be a good day to get some show prep done and pull some tractors out and get some stuff going. So we're over here in Gravely Land, as you can see, and this is where the WheelHorse dump truck has been parked for at least a good year and a half, 2 years now. And for those of you longtime subscribers, you may remember this from back in 2010. Me and my dad built this over the summer. We made it out of a WheelHorse GT14 parts tractor that we had pulled out of the woods. It's got a Bronco 14 WheelHorse engine in it, and of course a WheelHorse Sunstrand transmission. The dump body on the back of it is from a DR Power Wagon. They used to make poly dump beds for them that you could change out from the original wooden ones. And it was sitting out back for the longest time, and we figured this would be kind of a cool project to put it to good use. So this is what we ended up coming up with. And it's been quite a few years since I've had this at the show, and it's got to get running because it's just been sitting up here for too long. So I figure it's about time to pull it out of storage and give it a little bit of exercise. But I do know it's going to need some work. The gas tank's going to have to get dried out because I know it's got some moisture in it. There's a mouse nest behind the fan shroud on the engine. I'm sure the carburetor might have to get gone through, and just simple stuff like that. So we're going to see if we can get this going, and then depending on how the video's going and what I get for time, we're going to see if we can get some other show prep done and pull some other tractors out of storage too. So anyways, let's get cracking on this thing and get it going again. So the first thing I'm going to do is get this gas tank pulled off of here. That way I can get it down to the garage and get the fan put inside of it and get everything drying out on the inside. That way by the time we're done going through the engine and all that stuff, this will be ready to mount back up. So for drying out these tanks here, I got everything cleaned out of the inside with what I could for paper towels, and I have these small barrel fans that I had rigged up with a little AC adapter that plugs into the wall. Pretty simple. They came out of an old dishwasher, and they move a pretty fair amount of air, so I'll set these up at the mouth of all the gas tanks, and it dries them out pretty quick. Unfortunately, these Briggs tanks have a baffle right in the middle of the tank, which makes them hard to clean out and hard to dry out. But I figure with enough time sitting here in the sun with the air moving through it, everything should dry up that's on the inside of it. And as you can see, hopefully through the screen, we get a little mouse nest there and what's left of it down the bottom. And I really don't want to pull this fan shroud off, because then I'm going to have to pull a coil off and pull the air cleaner and everything like that. So I'm going to pull the head shroud off of here and see what I can pick out of here with either a pair of needle nose pliers or a stick or something and get what I can out of the nest. And when it comes time to start it, I'll leave this shroud and the side shroud off and just let whatever else blow out, and then we can get this down to the garage and just finish blowing the rest of it out with compressed air. If there's one thing I can't stand, it's mice, as you can see. And everything else that's left down the bottom, that'll all fly out when the engine starts and finish blowing it out once we get it down into the driveway. At the very least, when you shut the gas off, sometimes you just get lucky. This is the carburetor bowl, as you can see. There's a little bit of crusty stuff in there, but aside from that, it's not too bad, being that I ran it out all those years ago. So that'll be an easy clean out, and the rest of it on the other side also looks pretty good too. There's a little bit of white stuff on the stem sticking down, but nothing overly bad, so luckily enough that's not going to have to come off of there. I also brought over our battery here, so we're going to pull the spark plug out and see if we have spark. If not, we're going to run some 400 grit paper through the points and get those cleaned up again. So after sitting for so long, the spark was a little bit weak. Obviously enough, the points are going to get corroded up a little bit. So now, after cleaning them up, hopefully the camera picked that up, we get a nice blue spark again. Alright, gas tank is back on. That's all been dried out. I got the fuel line hooked up. We got some fuel in the tank. Spark is all okay. Carburetor's all clean inside still. So let's see if this thing will fire up. Now the only thing about this tractor is when I wired it, I used the original key switch from the trigger ignition system that the Kohler had. So the coil only gets power when I release it and it's in the run position, which makes it a little bit difficult to start. One of these days I'm going to get around to rewiring it. But for the time being, let's see if we can get this thing to fire up. Should be with the Kohler, folks. Not too bad for a 2-year startup. So we'll get the belt back on here and see about driving this thing out. Alright, so now that the WheelHorse dump truck has finally been pulled out and that's running again, I have to get a couple of Graveleys going for the show, and this is one of the ones that I'm going to be bringing. I don't know what year it is. It was an L that was converted to an LI. As you can see, the I is stamped in it. This one came out of New Ipswich, New Hampshire a couple of years ago. Bought it from some nice folks up there, and it's a pretty nice original machine too. It does have the original wooden handle grips on it, which are in very nice shape. But I like bringing this one to the shows because it's a nice example of a good original condition Gravely. And one in front of it right here is a 1947 brass tag, if I'm not mistaken. And I ended up buying that from a guy up in New Hampshire that was moving and they couldn't take it with them. So I ended up getting that with the original canvas cover, Gravely tractor cover, which was pretty neat, along with a square chute blower. And I think that was it, if I'm not mistaken. But it was a really nice running tractor. I haven't had it going for about a year or so now. I know it's going to need the magneto done on it. I think the carburetor and gas tank are okay. I got to find a starter for it so I can get a battery on it. And then I'm going to be putting my right angle saw drive on the front of this, which I'm in the process of rebuilding with new seals down the garage. So this will have the buzzsaw on it for the show. Now the only problem with this Gravely was that it had a skip when it runs, and it runs kind of hard. I could never get the ignition timing quite right, or get the carburetor tune quite right on it. And for as often as it comes out, which is really just for the shows, I never worried too much about it. But majority of the time, it always fired right up. And now for the brass tag. Just for those of you who have brass tags that might want to see if it's close. There's your serial number. And this one has a Fairbanks Morse magneto on it. Doesn't have the Wyco. And I think it ended up losing spark. It had a bad spark last year when I tried to get this thing going. So I ended up parking it and just leaving it for another time. And now it's come to that other time, so I want to get this going again. So I'm going to get this magneto off. We'll bring it down to the bench and see how the points look. Aside from the ripped cover gasket, this one's in pretty nice shape on the inside. It even still has the original part number tag on the coil up top, which I thought was pretty cool. But the points on it, I'm sure you can probably see right there, they're pretty black, definitely corroded up from sitting for all these years, so I'll have to get those degreased, shined up a little bit, and then we should get some nice spark out of it. Just pulled the carburetor off and did a quick carburetor clean. There was a lot of rusty dust inside of it that was plugging the jets, so I think that was keeping it from running. So let's give it another shot. Like I said, I always liked the way this one ran. Of course, now that the carburetor's clean, it runs a little bit better. And the last thing on the list today to get going is going to be the old Panzer T-70. This is one of the ones that I got in a lot of 4 Panzers at the beginning of last year, and I did the repair video on. I ended up losing spark the end of last year. I think after one of the shows I couldn't get it running again because I always keep this outside. It never gets covered except for the gas cap. So more than likely I'm going to have to pull the shroud off of it, pull the flywheel off, and clean up the points and see if we can get some spark back onto that spark plug again so we can get this thing running. So anyways, I'm going to pull the plug out, check it, and if it doesn't have anything, we'll start tearing into it. Alright, I checked for spark again and we don't have any spark, so I'm going to start pulling the shroud off. And what I did go ahead and do quickly was drain the gas tank out, and as you can see, I got the barrel fan blowing into it again up on top of the hood, so that way that can get dried out because it had some really foggy looking gas in it and also a little bit of water from sitting. So once again, by the time I'm done cleaning the points and getting the spark, our gas tank will be dry and ready to take in some new gas. they're definitely good and corroded, that's for sure. Got a pretty thick layer of corrosion on the points, on the contacts. And with the simple points cleaning, hopefully that picked it up. We have a nice white hot spark again. So I'm going to toss some gas into this and see what happens. I pulled the main jet out of the carburetor to drain off any residue that was in there, and I got some crusty stuff that came out. With any luck, hopefully I won't have to rebuild this, because I don't feel like rebuilding another carburetor today. But I have to get it running, so whatever it's going to take. So let's get some gas into this thing and pull it over. That takes care of the last of the stuff that I had to get running for the show. Everything else, I pretty much just got to toss a battery and put some gas into it, and everything else will run. I'll power wash everything midweek and get it all cleaned up, and then it's just a matter of trucking stuff down there on Friday. Figuring about making 3 loads with the 61. That should take care of it. I got 7 or 8 garden tractors and 2 Graveleys that are going. I'm not bringing the Worthington this year, although it's fun to drive around there. I just don't feel like making an extra trip for it. So any of you around New England want to go to a tractor show, hopefully the weather holds out. If you guys look up the Straw Hollow Engine Show in Massachusetts, you'll see where it is. Relatively easy to find and get to. It's free admission, free parking. Setup is on Friday, and I'll be there through Sunday. So with any luck, it'll be a good show this year. But I figured you guys might enjoy seeing some old starts and just pulling some equipment out. Nothing too special. With any luck, depending on how things go after the show, because this is the last of my show season and things will be slowing down a little bit. Maybe we'll have time for more videos, but you guys know how that goes. So anyways, folks, like I always say, there you have it.